Hello, this is Bad Vibes. Today's video is going to be on 5 of the most upvoted Let's Not Meet stories on Reddit. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy. My boyfriend, who I live with, works as a teacher in a town about 15 minutes away by train. He gets home more or less at the same time every day, give or take an hour or so. I, on the other hand, work from home. In late January of this year, we'd gotten in a pretty big fight about something stupid. I can't even remember what it was about right now. But it was one of those fights where we didn't speak to each other, text, call, or anything the whole next day. So, this afternoon I was laying in bed getting work done. It was a Tuesday, and I was pretty sure his last class finished at 1 p.m. on Tuesdays, meaning he'd surely be home at 2:30. But around 1 p.m. I heard the front door open and shut. I thought, I guess he's home an hour early today. It was normal for him to skip his last class every once in a while, so I didn't really think anything of it. In fact, I was mostly mentally preparing for the awkward post-fight, "Hey, how's it going?" conversation. So I continued to lie in bed and do my work and wait for him to come in and change his clothes. The bedroom door was closed and I had earplugs sort of half in. I usually do that when I'm working, but I could hear the heavy footsteps of him walking around the apartment as he always does. If we hadn't been mid-fight and I wasn't so preoccupied with the awkwardness of it all, I might have noticed it was strange how slow the footsteps were, or how long he spent walking around the living room. But I was caught up in the dramatics of the fight and didn't want to think about it. I was just laying there, waiting for him to finally come in. Finally, the bedroom door slowly opened just a few inches. I turned my head towards the door and prepared to give him a sort of awkward, "We've been fighting for 24 hours, huh?" smile. But the door didn't open more than a few inches. I looked and saw that it was a woman's hand with red nail polish on the doorknob. Whoever was there slowly closed the door just as they had opened it, without entering the room. I jumped out of bed, ripped out my earplugs, and sort of froze there for a few seconds while thinking rapidly. My first thought, that was not my boyfriend. Then I thought, could it have been his mom, his sister, the landlord? For some reason I concluded that it surely was his mom or his sister. So I opened the bedroom door and walked into the living room. There wasn't anyone there. The room smelled heavily of woman's perfume. Then I came to my senses. His mom and sisters don't have keys and have never come over before. The landlady has never entered without permission. This was a stranger. I ran back into the bedroom and shut the door, now shaking heavily. There was a balcony connected to my bedroom, so despite the cold January rain, I stood on the balcony and called my boyfriend. He picked up and I asked him if his mom or sister might come over unannounced. He told me, "No, do not move. I'm calling the police." The police were there in minutes and searched the whole apartment. Of course, nobody was there at this point. It was weird though. Nothing was missing from our apartment, despite us keeping a jar full of money right in the entrance. Nothing was even touched. In fact, it seemed like the intruder came straight to the bedroom, saw my legs on the bed, panicked and left. Plus, you can't open the wooden front door without a key. For a few days now, my boyfriend and I were convinced it was just the landlady being nosy and began to feel better. Nevertheless, we demanded the landlady change our locks. When she came to change them with her husband, she made a discovery. There was a square area by the keyhole that had been scratched away with something. The landlady said surely someone used tools to break into the apartment. Then, a day or two later, my boyfriend told me, "I have to tell you something, but don't freak out." He told me that the orange kitchen scissors were missing. I obviously freaked out. I tore through the whole apartment looking for those scissors. It's been 6 months and those scissors are gone. So the whole thing is just creepy and weird. A stranger breaks into a nice apartment but doesn't touch anything or take anything valuable, not even the money jar right in the entrance. Takes scissors from the kitchen, goes straight to my bedroom, sees someone in bed and immediately leaves. I never got to meet this person who opened my door that day, and I hope I never do. I was 21, recently became a police officer, and was recently dumped, so my friends suggested Tinder. As a 21-year-old and a new cop, I had the "I'm invincible and I can take on anyone" mentality. I matched with a very good-looking, out-of-my-league female. We chatted, and eventually set up a date to meet. She said she had a great open field to look at the stars and hang out, and we could meet up at our house. So that night came. I was excited and she seemed to be excited when I picked her up. She guided me to the field, and it looked nice. Open space, woods, deer, and other wildlife. In the field, I noticed really dim headlights in the distance. Then, the van started driving towards us and pulled up right in front of us, almost close enough to block me from going forward. I told her to stay in the car and I'll go say hi. I grabbed my flashlight in the car and walked up. In the front of the driver's side of the van, there's a decently sized man. I asked him what was going on and if he could back his car up a little bit. He was very polite, said he was the owner of the property, and said he didn't mean to scare us. He told me he's been having trouble with poachers on his property and just wanted to make sure that we weren't going to be shooting anything. I assured him that we only came here to look at some stars and wildlife. He was perfectly okay with that. Told me to have a nice date and drove away. After that, the girl was texting nonstop. Around an hour later, I saw headlights coming towards us again, this time at a really fast pace. We hopped in the car and I moved to a more defensive position. The same man came close enough to almost hit my car. She hopped out of the car at that point and ran towards the guy. I immediately knew I was fucked. I got out and gave them commands to back up and get on the ground. Neither of them complied. Obviously, he then proceeded to charge me and knock me to the ground. Luckily, I was able to get him on his back and get up. I saw my date grab a metal pipe from the van. She told me they have a gun and to give them my money and truck and I won't get hurt. Of course, with my invincible mentality, I said no. She started to cry saying they didn't want to hurt me. He then started to go back towards the car. At that point, I told them I was a cop, drew my concealed firearm, and told them to lay on the ground. After a moment of shock from all this, they complied. I was able to call 911 and tell them my name and badge number. I had two at gunpoint and needed backup immediately. I gave our dispatcher the best directions I could to this field. While on the phone, they both fled. Again, stupid new young cop mentality. I chased them. I took off after the man who ran into the woods around the field. I chased him for maybe 30 seconds and heard 3 loud pops and saw a muzzle flash. My invincible mentality went right out the window. I ran like hell towards my car and peeled the hell out of there. I went back to the area I picked her up in, called dispatch again, and had 2 officers come to that location. Of course, the first officers to pull up was my sergeant and my field training officer. Of course, they were both understanding and didn't give me shit about it at all. The most used words were dumbass and stupid fucking rookie. I hopped in their cars and went towards the field. Luckily, the van was still there. I was told to shut my mouth and only come out if they were getting shot at. They cleared the area and started looking in the van. They found meth right in the center console and searched the car. What scared me most was when my field officer and sergeant came back to the patrol car, let me out and told me to come look in the back of the van. Both of them were pale and looked horrified. I went back to the van where there were several knives, duct tape, lighter fluid, and a decent amount of rifle ammunition, handcuffs, and what looked to be dry blood. In the front seat passenger side, we found an AR-15 style rifle and 2 more handguns. We called for immediate backup and detectives. When they investigated the blood, it turned out it wasn't blood. The plates had been stolen and the van was reported stolen. I still get shit about the whole encounter, but luckily no one got hurt. I would never use online dating again, ever. I was 12 and my older sister and I were home alone for the weekend. I was waiting for a friend to pick me up and getting restless. There was a knock on the door. Thinking it was her, I ran to answer without checking through the peephole. A man was standing there with a clipboard and said he needed to check our gas meter. In disappointment of my friend still not having arrived, so I told him, yeah, sure, whatever you need. I didn't even notice at the time he wasn't dressed like a city official. He had on a green and purple shirt with bold stripes like the host of Blue's Clues. He came in immediately and went upstairs to where our bedrooms were and walked into the open door of my room. The typical girly girl room with pink and glitter. Thank God, my sister came down the stairs at almost the exact moment. She said, "Oh, is that Daphne's dad? Why is he going upstairs?" And I complained about how Daphne wasn't here and was going on about how unreliable she was when my sister cut me off. "Wait, if Daphne isn't here, who is that?" I said, "He's here to read the gas meter." Her face turned white. She flung open the front door and dragged me out, hand clamped over my protesting mouth. She said, Our gas meter's outside." Neither of us had cell phones. It was in the 60s. Then my ever-resourceful sister had a stroke of genius. A man was walking right by our house and she motioned him over. She called loudly into the house. "Oh, Dad! It's good you're home. A man from the city is here to read our gas meters upstairs." And just like she hoped, the man on the street said, "What are you talking about?" The man in the striped shirt bolted out of the house. The man on the street asked us repeatedly if we were okay, if we needed him to stay and wait in the yard with us until our parents came home. He was very sweet. We were so startled that we barely thanked him before slamming and locking our doors and windows. Irate as my sister was that I let someone in our house, she begged me not to call the authorities because my parents left her in charge and she worried she would be in trouble. I didn't want her to catch any heat from my carelessness allowing some guy in, so I was on the same page. 3 weeks later, a girl in our community went missing. Same MO. She was home alone and authorities found the door open and no signs of forced entry. My sister and I discussed our options, but deep down we knew we had no choice but to come clean. We told the police everything. I don't know if it ever helped, but they told us they had a reason to believe it was the same man. They also tracked down the man that helped us on the street. Turns out we already knew him. He worked at the butcher shop. We just didn't recognize him. He was lifelong friends with my family after that. Our parents were mortified. They weren't angry with us, just glad that we were okay. Though they did review all the rules of caution and didn't leave us home alone for a while. They found the girl and said she'd been held for a few days and then buried alive. They never caught the man, but fear not, he was in what appeared to be his early 30s in the 60s, so in any case, he has to be dead by now. I thank God every day for my sister's resourcefulness and quick action. False meter reader, let's not meet. My daughter reminded me of this today, and I thought y'all would enjoy a laugh. When my oldest daughter was a freshman in college, she and her friends decided to get into bones. Specifically, that they would pick up decaying roadkill, clean the skulls, and make art from them, or sell them. Eventually, they decided to get some fresh cow skulls to clean. They went to local slaughterhouses and bought 3 cow heads, wrapping them in plastic garbage bags and putting them in the back of their car. On their way to the cleaning site, they stopped at a home improvement store in the middle of nowhere to pick up some supplies. 2 people went inside, 2 stayed with the car. After a few minutes, my daughter said, "I think those heads shifted. I'm gonna go check them out and make sure they didn't come open." She got out, opened the hatchback, and the 2 bags toppled out, spilling blood and decapitated cow heads onto the pavement. As she jumped back, she happened to see a lone store employee pushing carts back to the store, and he saw the heads and the blood. He dropped the carts and power walked as fast as possible to get to the storefront, just as my daughter's friends came out. "We need to go," she said, and then they went, with no haste, and I'm sure that the poor traumatized employee is hoping to never meet them again. I was 13 years old at this time, on vacation with my parents in Turkey. We were in an all-inclusive hotel. The hotel was full of tourists from different countries. There was this one guy, around 20, who was staring at me for some time. I felt uncomfortable and asked him how he was doing. Wrong choice. The next few days, everywhere I was, he also suddenly appeared. Not flirting, just lurking for hours and watching me. He had a really strange vibe around him, and I felt I shouldn't be alone with him. Now, I was still young, so my parents didn't want to leave me alone in a foreign country, so he could not bother me. But one night there was entertainment in the hotel, which became boring to me after some time, so I told my parents I wanted to go to my hotel room and I would see them in the morning. I left and walked to the elevator. What I did not know was the guy who was watching me for days saw me leaving, and he had followed me. When I saw him also coming in, I was in great fear. He looked at me silently with a sinister smile. This is it, I thought. Rape, assault, or maybe even worse. And just as the doors of the elevator were closing, someone stuck their boot between it in order to prevent the doors from closing. And I'm not kidding at all. All I could see was a boot. The doors opened, and it was my dad. He saw that the creepy guy was leaving at the same exact time I had left, and didn't trust it. He looked the guy in the eye and said hello. My dad took me to my hotel room. To this day, I'm so glad for the rescue, because I don't know what would have happened if he didn't. If you made it this far in the video, I truly appreciate it. It means a lot. Thank you for listening. Till next time.